The most important game, you would say, of the candidates tournament round one was between Hikaru Nakamura and Fabiano Caruana, two of the favorites. Nepo is the other favorite of the more experienced set of people. Fabiano started with e4 and Hikaru responded with the Sicilian defense. So this turn looks like it's going to be a very exciting game because normally you would play e5 and then Fabi would probably play the Rui Lopez and then Berlin by Hikaru. But here he goes for a fight with Sicilian. And now knight f3, d6, we have the main line. And knight f6, knight c3, and here comes a surprise. e5 is not usually played here because of bishop check. So people usually play a6, the nudge door. But here e5. And now bishop check, knight d7. If you play bishop to d7, then bishop takes, and then the knight gets to f5. It becomes a very comfortable position for white. Knight d7, preparing to kick the bishop with a6. Knight f5, a6. So there's no time to play knight takes pawn. Bishop takes, queen takes is not enough. You will be a piece down. Bishop went back, b5, bishop went back, and now knight c5. Uncovering an attack on the knight as well. And defending this with the queen. And removing the nice bishop from b3. So Hikaru allowed some play for white, but now he's taking the control back. Bishop g5 takes, takes, and bishop e7. So Fabi now plays bishop takes knight. A normal move would have been castling, but he wanted to use the light squares. The d5 square is very ripe, and the d6 pawn would be weak after bishop takes, bishop takes. So he goes for play on the light squares, and now castles and getting ready to play knight d5 or bishop d5 or even queen d5. There's no light square bishop for black. The queen d5 also is a very useful choice. And then rook d1 and pressure. But Hikaru has other ideas. He plays e4, temporarily sacrificing the pawn because now rook e1 will get the piece back for Fabi. Rook e1 castles and takes. I said temporary pawn sack because now black plays bishop b2. There was a pawn hanging on b2. So now position is pretty much even. Opposite color bishops, white has more active rook, and there's a target on d6. But this bishop can happily go back to e5. Not right now because f4 will come. So he goes rook b1 first, saving the rook. Bishop goes back, and now queen d5. There is still a small edge for white. Rook c8, queen b7, attacking a6. So here Hikaru has to find counterplay. Yeah, because the a6 pawn's hanging, the rooks are going to come into the game. Like already there's a rook active on the e file. And now rook c5. He activates his rook, attacking the f pawn. Queen takes, rook takes. Rook d1 and now d5. Hikaru doesn't let that pawn stay as a weakness. He pushes it forward. Rook comes to b4 and now bishop c3. Rook takes pawn. Fabi won a pawn there. Hikaru just gave up the pawn, but he had a very interesting idea, a shocking idea. Both of them are down to below 40 minutes. Fabi is down to 30 minutes, and this is where Hikaru hits Fabi with a surprise. A shocking move. Rook takes f2, sacrificing a full rook. Fabi declined after thinking for 10 minutes. But what was the point of the sacrifice? If king had taken this, what was the problem? The queen would jump in. White is a full rook up, but the rook and queen are on another planet. Which means if the king goes to e2, there will be an attacking position for black. Black will win that. Mate will follow. So king, if it goes to f1, still rook e8, and rook e1 is a very big threat. To stop rook e8, white will have to give up the rook. There's no other choice. The queen and rook are in no way to position to support e1 square. So this was a problem with king f1. You'll have to give back the rook with a bad position for white. So that means king had to go to g1. Now if king goes to g1, then comes bishop d4 check. Giving back an exchange will not be enough because still these pieces are out of play. So now king h1 and now bishop e5 is the problem. If you play g3, bishop takes comes anyway. h3, there comes queen g3. Now the only move is king g1, and now there's a repetition with queen e3. If king to h1, then again queen f4. Same thing. King will have to move and then queen e3. I mean, you can go queen h2, king f2, and then queen f4. Either way, this will be a repetition. So this is why Fabi thought for 10 minutes and refused to take the rook. He allowed the material to be even. Now pawn is gone, so material is even. But Fabi understood. He plays rook takes pawn. He stays a pawn up, and he lives with this rook and bishop active near to his king. And now Hikaru goes queen h4. This is looking a little scary, right? The rook, queen, and bishop. G3 is not really possible here because of mate. So you can't do that. So here Fabi brings back his queen from the other side. Now G3 is still not a threat. Queen G3 is kind of what he's going for, and then the pawn can run forward. The pieces are active. The bishop is attacked. So here Hikaru just plays another shocking move. Rook to f6, giving up the bishop. Of course, this is much easier to refuse. If you take it, there's mate, queen f2, and then when king moves, queen f1, like a puzzle rush tactic. So that is no longer possible. But g3, right? Now queen take bishop is a problem. So queen has only one square to defend the bishop, queen b4. So after all these complications, Fabi managed the this stage of the game well. He ended up with still 15 minutes left on the clock, and he has a comfortable position. He has got a pass pawn. And with queens on the board, that pass pawn could be useful. King g2 going out of the dark squares. Bishop b2. And now rook f5. This is where Fabi went slightly wrong and he misstepped. a4 and then getting that pawn running would have been the right choice for Fabi. That would have kept the game going. Hikaru would have to defend properly. But instead, Fabi decided to like pull the trigger, as in let go of the accelerator by playing rook to f5. And now the problem is with more pieces getting off. Okay, g6 takes. With more pieces getting off, opposite color bishops make this very drawish. Fabi plays queen f3. Hikaru defends his bishop, and pawn a4, king g7, pawn a5, rook a8. That's as far as the pawn can go for now. So rook d5 defending the pawn, rook a7, rook b5. So Fabi has a comfortable position, but it's not enough for a win. The extra pawn won't be enough. Hikaru still has to defend. Here, rook d5, queen c7, h4. He's trying for h5. Rook takes, the a pawn is gone. Was there any way to defend this? Yeah, the a pawn couldn't be defended anyway. The queen had no squares to defend this pawn. So h4, rook takes, and now queen d7. It's equal material and an even position. So queen f7, he gives up the pawn. Okay, again, there was no move for black to defend. So it's a little bit scary, but it's still an opposite color bishops. So Hikaru defends well. King h3, queen e7. Queen goes back. Queen takes would have been a draw. After queen e3, they agreed to a draw. So this was a sort of a moral victory for Fabi, but Hikaru also defended well in sort of time pressure, and he had a couple of surprises in the game, which made Fabi think a bit. So all in all, it was a very exciting game of chess to start off the candidates. All the other games of the candidates were also draws. In the women's section, there was just one win, but a very mild start for the candidates this year.